Hi, this is Aubrey from Crybaby Sentimental Homestead. Today I want to talk to you about something really kind of strange, but it's kind of a current event. And that is, how do you feel about eating crickets? So, I remember when I was in middle school, which was a long time ago. It was like 30 years ago. When I was 30 years ago, when I was in middle school, like 6th grade, I lived in California. We lived on Fort Ord, it's a closed military base now. But when we lived there, we often would go to the surrounding areas like Monterey and Carmel. And I remember that there was a store there that had chocolate covered crickets. And when I looked at that as a kid, I remember we laughed about it, we joked about it. And so the whole idea of eating crickets, it's not new. It's been around for quite a while. And I thought about it when I was in middle school. Would you eat it? Would you eat this? So actually, along those lines, I remember reading an article that said that on average, the average American accidentally eats 5 pounds of insects per year. And that's because there's a certain allowable amount of insect legs and insect antenna per by weight per whatever. So you have cockroaches in your chocolate on accident. There are all kinds of insects that you accidentally eat, and that's about 5 pounds per year. So accidentally eating an insect, you don't know that it's there. You don't probably even aren't aware of it at all. So would you intentionally want to eat something like this, like crickets? I remember watching an episode of Naked and Afraid, and on that show, I like the survival stuff. I wish they could wear clothes. Can you just wear a t-shirt and underwear or something? But I like that show because it was very much how can you survive? And I always get frustrated when the people just kind of lay around for the 20 something days and just that's the best way probably to conserve your energy, but they don't actually use any survival skills. But on one of the videos I watched, somebody actually caught a couple crickets or grasshoppers, and she ate one and then she gave one to her partner, and the partner actually had a really bad allergic reaction and had to leave the show. And one thing that I saw on some of the videos about this whole cricket cuisine is that the packages will actually say, if you're allergic to seafood or shellfish or lobsters or whatever, that you're likely allergic to this product. And so that's one way you'll know that crickets are in there. Also, they might list the scientific name of the cricket with the species and the genus. So if you see something that looks like a scientific name, that's probably, and you can look it up because it'll be easy to find it. That usually people who are doing these products, they're advertised as, because it's a specialty kind of item. But it sounds like more and more that typical products might start using them and not advertise them that way. So you can Google crickets as food for people or cricket food for humans. If you type in cricket food, you'll come up with food to feed crickets or crickets to feed chickens. But if you type in cricket food for humans, you'll find all kinds of articles about this topic. You'll find a bunch of videos. So I don't have any moral problems against eating insects, I guess. But I just feel like I would rather be a vegetarian than try to get my protein from crickets. I love animals, and I have a lot of pets, and in my classroom we have some frogs, and I feed crickets to the frogs 3 times a week, and it's pretty gross. They climb on my hands, and I don't really care, but at the bottom of the container there's always some that are dead because when they're packaging them up, it's kind of like traumatic and some of them die. And after a day or two, there's a smell and you have to keep it clean and all this. And I also think of like what would be the hygienic protocol for farming crickets. Like we already looked at so many videos about how chickens and cows are raised inhumanely and how gross it can be and how they can be like sitting in their own feces and all of that. So I kind of wonder what would be the hygienic protocols around raising crickets. I kind of want to show you my crickets I'm about to go feed to the frogs so you can kind of get an idea. Last week I had accidentally purchased, my husband actually purchased the crickets and he got the big type and the big size, and I had them in like a plastic container, and the sound of their legs moving across it just sounded gross and creepy. And I had ended up trying to return them, but of course you can't return crickets to a pet store. And I remember thinking, man, I really don't want to eat this. If I was starving to death, for sure I'd eat anything. People, during colonization of the United States in like Jamestown, they like boil and eat their own belts and hats, like the leather. People will eat anything if they're starving. If I got to that point, of course I would. But I kind of wonder why. Like, you're going to grow, purposely farm a domesticated version of locusts, basically. Like, there must be other things that are, like, what if your little farm, the door is left open, and now you have all these crickets out eating our crops. So, I mean, that's something to think about, right? They're sustainable if you keep them in an enclosure and you keep it sanitary. But if they got out, they eat what we eat also. They eat a lot of vegetation. So it's kind of, I think about that. Like, it's kind of like we are eating the plague. Let me show you what they look like, okay? All right, so here you can see the crickets. It's a little blurry through the plastic bag. So, I mean, if you like shrimp, I'm sorry. If you like shrimp, you might not want this still, but, I'm not even gonna guess what they taste like, but I can tell you what they smell like, and it's not good. Does that look yummy? Tastes like chicken. Oh, there we go. What do you think about this? Does that sound like a yummy, appetizing meal right here? This reminds me of, I can't remember the name of that movie. Oh, was it Victor or Victoria? I don't know. There was a movie I watched when I was a kid. My mom was watching it, and one of the tricks the person did was they would put a bug in their food and then complain to the waitress, look, there's a bug in my food, and then they would get the meal for free. So, I mean, if I found one of those in my meal, I would return it to the restaurant and say, I want my money back. There's a bug in my meal. So that's kind of interesting, right? So if you're willing to eat these in your food and it's one of the listed ingredients, then I guess if you go to a restaurant and there's a bug in there, you're going to have to just chomp it down and consider it free protein. All right, guys, chat in the comments. What do you feel about this whole mainstreaming insects as a food source, as protein source? I personally would rather get protein by combining beans and rice for complete protein, or eating plants like purslane and other really nutritious plant foods, or even like just nuts and seeds. Chicken eggs are a wonderful source of protein in my perspective, and I would rather just eat those kinds of things even if I didn't have access to beef and chicken. If I never had access to them again, I would give up beef and chicken as long as I didn't have to eat those. I'd rather eat, nuts and seeds and purslane and rice and beans. And if there's an insect in it, I'm probably scooch that to the side. All right, guys, love to hear what you think. I'm not passionately against people purposely going and buying those specialty items. I just don't think I'd want to have it mainstreamed into most foods where we have to read the label to see if it's in there. Like, I think you should have to try to buy it, not accidentally buy something that has it in there and read the label to look for it. So, does that make sense? Like, I think that it should be clearly labeled, very bright, neon light. This has insects in it, and this is what it is. Not, just kind of mainstreaming it for everybody. All right, that's my personal perspective, and I don't feel like we should force people into our ideologies. So, I love sustainability. I'm all about sustainability. Don't get me wrong, but I just really don't feel like anybody should try to force somebody, into their ideology. Put it that way. So, like, for instance, I don't eat pork. So, I remember going to some family and friends, and they'd have pork in absolutely every dish. And it was to the point where it was kind of obnoxious that you're inviting somebody over. For many years, I was a vegetarian. I'm not anymore, but I still don't eat like pork. And so if I'm invited somewhere and every single dish has pork in it, then I know I'm not a welcomed guest. Because when you invite people over, right? So I think of that way. Someone is forcing their ideology on me. And like when I have vegetarian over to my house, I have at least some things that they, like my main meal might not be vegetarian, but I'd have salad and I'd have veggies and I'd have, things that they could mix and match together. I wouldn't have it all. And I just think of that as like a parallel to, you go to the grocery store, and are there going to be options for people who don't want to eat crickets and who do want to still eat beef and chicken and pork? Like, that people should still have those options. It's not up to me to mandate what somebody eats or doesn't eat. So how do you think that people should go about that? Should it be super clearly marked on those packages? How do you feel about that? And does it look appetizing to you? All right, everyone. I won't judge you, honestly. If you think it looks like lobster and you're like, I'm going to dip that in some butter. Like, I don't care. All right, everyone. See you later. Live long and prosper. Subscribe. Talk to you later. See you tomorrow.